Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Recrutes Draftcast. I am your host, Rick Springhetti, and we got the man himself, Grant McCagg here. Grant, let me ask you, what kind of day is it today?
Rick, it's a great day to talk hockey.
Let me ask you, you keep saying that, and I really would like to know, why is it a great day for hockey? Please let us know.
Well, I'm kind of borrowed that and put a little bit of a spin on it from Bob Johnson, who pretty famously used to always say it's a great day for hockey. And he was a beloved coach. Of course, he coached Pittsburgh to the Stanley Cup, and then unfortunately was stricken with brain cancer and left us way too early in life. But I always thought I loved the positive message of that. And uh, you know, I think it's a cool way of honoring Bob Johnson's legacy by starting a podcast by saying it's a uh, great day to talk hockey. Um, I mean, I think we've all been affected one way or another by if it's not family or friends or whoever that have died far too young from cancer. And like, just personally, my dad's father passed away when I was 5 of cancer, and my dad left us probably 14 years ago now, and I miss his advice every day. And Brian Murray from my small town of Shawville of 1,500 people, pretty famous. I consider a mentor. Left us way too soon with prostate cancer, and Guy Lafleur, my hockey hero, died of cancer, and it's just a tribute to all the people that left us way too young, and but yet it's a positive message that, hey, while we're here, let's every day is a great day to talk hockey.
It's a great sentiment, Grant, and it's a sentiment that we need to hear more of in this day and age, for sure.
Right on.
So, on this episode of July 20th, 2025, let's first thing I want to talk about. I hear you have a little bit of an update on Ivan Demidov. Can you please share with our listeners what's been going on with him this summer in Montreal?
Yeah, well, it's not, it's just a small nugget, but like, he's been practicing all summer with Adam Nicholas, who is maybe the best skills coach in the NHL. He's just so highly regarded by everyone.
Yeah,
But I heard that this is really the first summer where Demidov has been able to really properly train. Um, was hard to get ice in Russia in the summer, and he didn't really. And so he's going to be even better than like, that's the exciting part, that expect
yeah.
another jump in his skill level because he's actually getting to practice, and he's got a work ethic kind of similar to Lane Hutson, where he wants to be on the ice all the time, wants to be getting better, and he's got that opportunity being in Montreal this summer, getting the ice whenever, because I mean, right, the Habs,
Yeah.
he can practice he can practice whenever he wants. So it's absolutely outstanding that he's got a great work ethic, and that he's only improving all summer, and that we can expect even another level from him to start next year. So how exciting is that for House fans?
Oh, absolutely. This is great to hear. Great that he's getting accustomed to the league, or I don't say to the league, but to the city and with his teammates and all that. Just all around great news. And working with Adam Nicholas is, as you say, top notch. Really, really good stuff. You mentioned Lane Hudson. Do you have anything on him?
Oh, well, there's another guy. I heard, I just spoke a little bit with his dad recently, and just saying that he's not resting on his laurels in any regard. He wants to be better than he was last year. right? That's just the tip of the iceberg. And Rob, of course, they have a rink right there in Chicago, right? His dad owns an arena, and he's been working on him taking backhand passes like crazy. Like he says I don't know if he likes it necessarily. I'm really working him hard, but that that like really working him hard, and uh, that whole family, it's all hockey. They live and breathe it, and I say it's a great day to talk hockey. Well, for them, it's a great day. Every day is a great day to play hockey. So um, it's just expect Lane to come back even more, even better, uh, and that's pretty exciting too. I asked Rob if Lane's put on any weight, and he says I've stopped asking him about it. Like he doesn't have to. He can play like he's just one of those guys, just a freak of nature, and it doesn't really matter that he only weighs 165 or 170.
Hmm.
He can play at that. Like
Yeah.
you don't want him to lose any of that quickness, and he's just so smart and elusive that he doesn't get hit very often anyway. And when he
No.
does, he knows how to take hits. He steadies himself really well and stuff. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Rob was telling me about like Chelios, who you know Rob would get to talk to him being in Chicago and
Hmm.
Chelly's connections to Chicago and stuff. But Chelios told him, the Habs always wanted him playing at 185, but he found that he was best when he was 175. When he
Oh
actually,
wow.
and I mean, Chelly's 6 foot, right? So
Right.
he didn't play with a lot of beef on him, none really.
No.
So Lane's the same way, but he's that's a 5'9", 5'10". So um, I don't know. I always say, well, this guy has to put on some weight before he's ready for the NHL. But Lane Hutson is making me change my thinking on that to a certain degree. Like sometimes there's exceptions to the rules, and Lane
Of course. Yeah.
Hutson is an exception to that rule.
Right. Right. I agree 100%. One observation about Lane Hudson, myself, and you, as you talked about it, it struck me. Every time there's a young forward that makes it to the NHL that's a little bit undersized, we'll say, no, hey, he's a little bit like Marty St. Louis, or he resembles Marty St. Louis. Jimmy Hudson resembles Marty St. Louis in the sense that they're both really undersized, really strong, stocky lower body, great balance. They're both hockey nuts. I mean, you can't get them off the ice. I mean, you almost have to force them to get off the ice, both of them. In a sense, they're really similar to me in that sense, even though one's a forward and one's a defenseman.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Although I don't think Lane's legs are nearly as uh, stocky as Marty St. Louis.
Well,
You know,
Marty St. Louis, something else for sure.
yeah, he's got different kind of a body
Yeah.
type, I think, than Marty. Marty, I don't think you could describe Lane as stocky. He's sinewy. I think would be a better, you
Okay,
know.
that's a good point.
Uh,
That's a good point.
but yeah, they definitely both have that passion and love for the game, and strive to get better. And I think Marty Marty appreciates that quite a bit in Lane.
Awesome, awesome. So, the news from Montreal this week, I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking or shocking, but it is a signing, and we should look into it a little bit. Montreal signed Joe Veleno this week to a 1 year, $900,000 a year contract. Tell me, what do you think of the player? And if things work out well, what do you think his role could be with Montreal?
I had a look at his last game with Chicago against Ottawa. Of course, I saw him live, Demidov's debut in Montreal. But honestly, I my attention was taken up by another player
Yes,
that night.
yes.
Yeah, I don't
I
think I
wonder who.
Yeah, I think I was watching Demidov even on the bench. Some shifts that not really paying attention to the. Well, what's he doing on the bench here? No, it was. I, I of course, if I'd have known at the time that Veleno would end up being a hab, might have paid a little more attention that night.
Yeah.
But he only actually played 9 minutes that game. But I had a look at his game against Ottawa, and you would ask me, well, you know why don't I ask you about his strengths and weaknesses? Um, Honestly, I couldn't really make a affirmative conclusion based on the one game viewing. I'm not really sure what to expect from him, but I do know that he has spent the summer working with, like, he's in Montreal, right? So he's
Mhm.
been with Adam Nicholas most of the summer, I think, as well, and
Oh, wow.
working on his game with Adam. And I think that's kind of cool too, because Kent Hughes can get the feedback from Adam, and probably even watched him play some this summer and said, okay, what do you think? You know, should we sign this
Mhm.
kid? Is he getting better? Is he a good student and all that?
Mhm.
And I can only presume that Nicholas gave a thumbs up and said, yeah, the kid's getting better. But when he was 15, 16, of course, he was a phenom, right?
Yeah.
And kind of like Shane Wright and the odd player where at 15, 16, they're better than the other kids their age where they're
Mhm.
playing. And maybe he kind of peaked physically at that age and didn't keep growing the way maybe other kids caught up, right?
Yeah.
Because I know going into his draft year and the year before, there was talk that he might be a top 5 pick, right?
Mhm.
And then he kind of hit a wall in his physical development and never uh, went beyond that. But maybe spending a summer with Adam Nicholas and all the Montrealer, all the NHL guys, maybe he develops some and comes into camp and is a better player than what he's been so far. I mean, he's still just a kid, right? He's what, 24, maybe
I believe he just turned 25 recently, but yeah, he's around
25.
that age,
Okay,
right? 24,
so
25. He's young. He's a young player.
you don't really reach your peak till 26. You're still developing, really,
Mhm.
usually. So maybe he comes in and it's the best he's been as an NHLer, and if that's the case, then he can help the Canadians. So obviously, having another left center option, it was important. Um, I I think coming into the year, they're probably thinking 13, 14 forward that can come into the lineup on occasion, help out. It'll be a battle between him, Kapanen, and Beck, I guess, for a spot in the
Mhm.
in the top 12.
As a
And
center, definitely. Yeah.
I think Kapanen wins it. And I did a video on that this week. In
Yes.
fact, I think he may even, play with Demidov, but we'll discuss that in a little bit, I think. Uh, but Veleno is good insurance policy for me. And he's got some offensive ability. I don't know if he can play a PK role. I don't think that that's necessarily his game, but you know, uh, it wasn't a bad idea to pick up another left center. Insurance policy. If he has a really good camp, maybe he gets a regular role this year with the Canadians. So it doesn't hurt to have. I think you got to go into camp with extra bodies, and if somebody gets hurt or somebody disappoints, he can step in and he won't hurt you playing a bottom 6 role. I think you've probably seen him more than I have, being in, being in Montreal, and especially in his junior career and stuff. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on him.
You know, he's not a bad skater to me when he's moving his feet. You know, it's just about moving, keep his feet moving, keep them moving because he could accelerate fairly well. I don't think he's got the vision or the creativity to create offense. I think most of his goals, if I'm not mistaken, I think when he scored a few goals, he was often playing off the wing. When that's where he's able to produce a little bit. It's tougher for him at center to generate. He does play. He has learned how to play a better forechecking game. I find a little bit. He's finishing his checks a little bit, trying to put pressure on the puck carrier. Um, what's his role going to be in Montreal? I think a part of it's going to be maybe mentally for him. And what I mean by that is, you know, he's a first round pick. All his life, he was seen as this very talented producer, and I think at this point he has to realize that that's not going to be his role in the NHL. And now his mindset has to change a little bit, maybe. And I think he's getting there as he gains maturity, and realize, okay, I got to be more of a quote unquote plumber, right? You know,
Energy
finish
guy.
my checks, go after the puck, create turnovers. Maybe that's going to be my game. I think there's a role for him in Montreal just because we talk about like having left-handed centers. I think the only one they have beside him is Alex Newhook, and I don't know if that's going to work. So I
Yeah.
think by default, you almost have to give him a role on the team for now until maybe something else happens during the offseason or at the start of the year or later on in the year. But I think just for that reason, to give Marty St. Louis that option of somebody who could take faceoffs off the left side, I think for now there's a role for him to lose and not he's not hoping to get a spot in the starting lineup right now. I think it's more that he has a role to lose. Just it's a situational thing, not a you know maybe Kapanen is a better player, probably has more upside at his age and with his ability. But I think at the start of the year, you might have to give him a spot just for those faceoffs. I really think because Newark at 43, 44%, just it's not good enough, right? Veleno, at least he's at 47, 48. It's better. It's a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's what, one out of every 15 faceoffs he wins more or something like that. Like, I don't know that it's that pertinent. 5%
That's true.
difference. If one player is a lot like Newhook's a better player than Veleno, he's a lot
Oh yeah.
faster.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
now I I know what you're saying, and I mean it depends on how caps go for players.
Yeah.
I think uh,
Yeah.
if Kapanen has as good a cap as he did last year, he's he's winning a spot to start the year. I have no doubt about
Yeah.
that because he was outstanding. And I think Bull Duke, well, you were saying that he's working on faceoffs this summer. I think personally, I think that they hope maybe to have Bolduc and Kapanen together.
Oh.
Uh, Bolduc can take faceoffs on his strong side. Kapanen can take faceoffs on his strong side,
Oh.
and then Doc and Newhook together, and same deal where Doc plays takes faceoffs on the right on his strong side. Newhook takes faceoffs on his strong side, or reversed with Doc and Bolduc together, and Kapanen and Newhook together, one or the other. Like I think that there's
Fantastic.
ways that they can maybe get around it if Veleno doesn't win a regular spot in camp. I think he's got to outplay Kapanen for him to win that spot. I I mean I think Kapanen with Demidov and Newhook, or sorry, Demidov and Bolduc. We'll get into that. There's reasons why I
Yeah.
think that might work, but you figure maybe that Kapanen, uh, because of the left center dilemma, may not win a regular center spot.
Yeah, it might be Kaepernick might be a sense of taking one step back to take maybe two steps forward later. They might decide just for a short time, haven't played Laval and just really touch the puck a lot in North American ice and maybe put him in more offensive situations. Just for it might just be for 20 games, and then a trade happens, a player isn't made available, maybe an injury happens too, and then maybe you bring Kapanen on having played a little bit more with the puck, offensive touches, and like I said, one step back to take two steps forward as the season goes on. He's so young. He's got so much hockey ahead of him. But that's a possibility. We'll see. I think we talked about it a little bit like off camera. For camp is actually going to be important this year. Guys better
Yeah,
come up ready to go because there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts on for the Habs now, and the players are going to be able to put themselves in a position to succeed or fail. That's a good thing.
yeah, that's fair. And I mean, folks are saying, you can't have two rookies playing on the same line, and
Uh,
I sort of get that, but are Demidov and Kapanen true rookies? Like, sure, technically both will be eligible for the Calder Trophy this year, but Kapanen played 2 years in Liga, 1 year in the SHL, and last year he also played 18 games with Montreal, then 20 playoff games in three different pro leagues. Like, I do not consider him to be a rookie coming into the year this year. He's going
right.
to be 22 and proven like he was a point per game player in the
Yeah.
SHL last year. Like, let's take for instance just Lucas Raymond. Okay,
Hmm.
he had 18 points in 34 SHL games a year after he was drafted, basically half of Kapanen's production. He goes to
Hmm.
Detroit, is given a top six role, and scores 57 points right off the bat. Now, everyone. I'm not saying that Kapanen is as skilled as Raymond. What I'm saying is that many fans are only looking at his lack of production in Montreal in a small sample size last year and ignoring what he accomplished in Sweden in a larger sample size. I think that I think that he just he came to camp last September having just turned 21, never competing on NHL sized rinks that are 85 feet wide. Had an outstanding camp and looked good and produced in a couple of exhibition games, playing a top six role at center. But then he starts the season in and out of the lineup, playing an unfamiliar winger position, anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes with checkers on smaller ice where he didn't have the time and space that he was used to. Did folks
Hmm.
really expect high production last year? Like, he goes to the
True.
SHL, maybe the second best pro league on the planet, and he is only one of only five players to average a point per game at 21. So I see untapped potential there that I think if he comes to camp, has a really strong camp, um, I could see him playing with Demidov and Bolduc. Uh, and here's where, uh, you could call it the second line. Like, we get too hung up on numbering the lines.
Yes.
The most
Yes.
successful coach in the Habs history, Scotty Bowman. Do you think the Gainey Jarvis line, which was considered the fourth line, right? You think they always got
Yep.
fourth line minutes?
Mm.
No. There were
No.
many games when they played more than any other line. You know, maybe not the Lafleur line sometimes, but the second and third lines, like with Cornway, Jarvis, and those guys, they're or not Risebrow's line and Mondou's line. Many games, many games. Gainey's line and Risebrow's line played more than Mondou's, which was considered the second line,
Second.
right? It all
Yeah.
depends on matchups. Like
Yep.
when they played against Buffalo in the French Connection, or the Rangers at the goal of game line with Rattel, or Espo, Hodge, and Koshman, do you think Lafleur or Cornier were always out there because they were
No.
the first and second lines? This year there's going to be a lot of matchups. Like,
Yep.
Montreal's depth will be such that all of the bottom three lines will get very similar ice times. I think
I think
if
so.
Bolduc, Kapanen, and Demidov are aligned, Marty will protect them whenever possible by avoiding matchups against other high-powered lines if they have any defensive struggles. Same with Doc, Line, and Newhook if that's a line, especially at
Hmm.
home when they have the changes, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I think.
And
Go ahead.
sorry, even just last year, I mean, the Heavens line was on fire for a certain amount of games.
Sure.
Ride the wave. Maybe it's going to be a 15 game stretch where another line is really, really hot. You ride them for 15, 20 games. And then when it's time to another line could get more minutes because injury
Yeah,
or a slump or whatever, and then you move those around. But no, you have to adjust in today's NHL. You're constantly adjusting game per game, even shift per shift.
yeah.
You make changes, you adapt, you change more things. Uh, it's a very different game now, and you're right. You can't number those lines and get caught up too much in that.
Well, Evans, if Evans plays with Gallagher and Anderson, do you really think they're playing like 8 minutes? There won't be no games where they play 8 minutes. They'll play more than like Kappen and uh, Demidov and Newhook or Bolduc or whoever the other, whatever combination it is. If it's Veleno, even like they'll play more than those guys most nights. Yeah, they'll be called the fourth line, but they won't be playing fourth
Right.
line minutes, right?
No, I agree.
They'll they'll go out against they'll be out against top two lines most of the time whenever Marty
Of
can
course.
do it and protect the other guys against other lesser lines, right? So
Right.
for when I say second line, it's points wise. If Bolduc and Demidov, whoever they're playing with, odds are that they'll get more points than the Evans line. In part because they'll be playing more power play time and they'll get points there as well. So people will say, well, that's the second line. But at the end of the year, I'd be surprised if Demidov and Bolduc get more ice time than Evans and Gallagher, for instance, right? Average ice
Right.
time. If they do, it'll be seconds more, not, typical 18-minute second line, 10-minute fourth line. I think the second to fourth lines are going to play very similar minutes, and it will depend on matchups. It'll depend on who's going right.
Hmm.
It'll depend on home when you're playing at home and you can get the last change. There'll be a lot of factors there, but when I say second line I think Kapanen can play on the second line. It's not necessarily going to be the second line every night. Just so yeah, I think two rookies can play on the second line. Um, you protect them whenever you can. I think Bolduc, Demidov, and Kapanen are all good defensively, and Kapanen is really good defensively.
Yes.
I think that's the one thing. You know, as I pointed out on my video that I did on Kapanen, the Stanley Cup winners the last 6 years: Cirelli, Chandler Stevenson, Sam Bennett. Um, uh, who's the other guy? Anthony Cirelli. None of
Yes.
them are big point producers. The what they all have in common was that they play very well defensively. So I really think a strong defensive center like Oliver Kapanen playing with Demidov and Bolduc would make sense. But that's my hot take going into the training camp. I know most Habs fans don't agree with it because, well, Kapanen played 18 games in the NHL and he didn't score a goal. So how can he center offensive players? Well, because you need a balance there.
Yeah.
You need a guy that can play a two-way game, and I think there's tremendous amount of untapped offensive potential with Kapanen that will start to come out this season.
And folks, let me tell you, go on YouTube at Recruits Hockey 9700. Go find Grant's video montage here, let's say, and his argument for Kapanen on the second line. He's not just throwing stuff out there out of the blue. He gives you a really nice breakdown with proof, little clips that show you exactly how smart Kapanen is. I think if you have some doubts, you might be a little bit impressed by what you see there. Grant really breaks it down really, really nicely.
Thank you.
Listen, Grant, we talked a little bit about this. We kind of approached the subject, but let's maybe get into a little bit more. Um, you know, the lineup, Montreal's roster lineup is really coming together very, very well with some great acquisitions, but there's still weaknesses on the team. What do you think the biggest weaknesses the Habs have right now, and how do you mitigate those weaknesses?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is lack of a legitimate left center. I don't
Hmm.
know. Uh, I don't know that Newhook. I think Newhook's hook is probably best suited on the wing.
Hmm.
Uh, he can play center, but I don't know that his defense and puck distribution and faceoffs obviously
Right.
make him certainly not a second line center. I know he got unfairly put into that spot last year when there was no other choice, and he did. To his credit, he did come on in the second half, and
Hmm.
I think he's a player like Veleno that's kind of figuring out that you have to, you may have to adapt to his that being a top 16 pick doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a top six center. He top two center. He's got to play more, utilize that speed, forechecking, become a. I always I kind of always say he needs to become like Andrew Cogliano, like
Oh.
who became a very good, who was an offensive, speedy center who learned that he wasn't going to be a top six player in the NHL. So
Hmm.
energy, defense, play hard, and become a really good bottom six piece. And I
Okay.
think Newhook's starting to figure that out. That he's probably not going to be a top six guy. That his role will be third line, but he can produce some offense and bring that bring that speed, bring that motor every single shift, keep
Hmm.
improving his defense, and become better like that. Um, Now, I mean, we've talked a lot about center, but I think the other spot that is a question mark going into the year is goaltending. Um, it is the one. It may be good. It may not be good. The,
Hmm.
it's so unpredictable, right? They
Oh
don't
yeah.
have a top 10 goalie on the team.
No.
Uh, a guy that well, okay, we know he's going to be great. Monty has shown flashes that he can be a legitimate starter, but there's also games where, especially at the start of the year, where he let in a goal early and it just seemed to kill the momentum.
Yeah.
He got a little better with it as the year went on, but we don't. It's the unpredictable position, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and it's one of the reasons why they signed Capo Kakinen, I think,
Right.
is because we don't know about Dobish either. I love his competitiveness, his size, he's athletic, but he's busy in nets there. Uh, his technique,
Is.
his technique still needs work, and he's very inconsistent. Started off looked like he was going to be the next Steve Penny, or, or Patrick Roy, and
Yes.
you know came back down to earth. Don't know what you're going to get from Dovish this year. Really don't. And
Yeah.
Fowler, I think, showed in the AHL playoffs that he's going to need time, right? They
Yeah.
always
Of course.
they always do. So Kakinen, I like that Molson. He's you know he got some playoff revenues, Laval and Montreal, and said, I like I want this money again. This is nice to get
Yeah.
an extra 20 million or whatever in the bank account with these home playoff games. So he went out and he spent, you know, a million on Veleno, who knows, may play in the minors.
Right.
Kakinen, a million. One of those two goalies, Dobush or Kakinen, is going to be in the minors, making them
Hmm.
either a little above or below a million. A couple of these contracts where, yeah, I'll dole out an extra 800,000 on a couple of players because we need that depth and we need that
Hmm.
insurance. And just use the playoff revenues, Jeff, from last year. No biggie, right? He got a taste of playoff revenues, and he wants
Yeah.
a full plate of it this year, right? He wants the Habs to get
Right.
back in the playoffs. So
Right.
I'm sure he signed off no issue with signing a Capo Kakinen to a one-way contract and Dovish to a one-way contract and then pay that extra. And I like that. The Canadians are finally in that position where, yeah, there's a good chance that they could make the playoffs. So why not spend a little extra
Absolutely.
money?
And if when you have a good Laval team, you also could get guys like Kakkonen to come play here because they're like, you know what? Even if I don't play in the NHL, I'm going to play on a good organization,
True.
really nice arena next to a big city. It's not that bad, right? So
Mm.
take advantage of that advantage, if you will, for Montreal. And the only thing I agree with everything you say. The only one weakness too that I'm a little bit worry about is maybe the penalty kill doesn't have
Uh,
that depth, right, with the loss of Dvorak and Armia. So
Very good point.
Suzuki's a really, really good defensive player. He could take some of that, but you always worry about maybe putting too much on Suzuki, where even 5-on-5, he tends to play against the other team's best players, and that's a lot. But again, openings give opportunities to players, and maybe some players on the team that you never thought would be good shorthanded might be able to take. I mean, maybe Newark speed would make him a pretty could he could learn how to be a pretty good defensive player with that speed. He's a guy, and we've seen even Slavkovsky at time is not a bad defensive player for a young guy his age. Maybe it's a little bit too inexperienced right now, but he could be somebody in the back of your head that you look at and say maybe at some point he could take a little bit of secondary minutes on the penalty kill. But you like to have those options. Complete players are so important come playoff time because anything could happen. And when you have a good second, third, and fourth options to take on these roles, you're just a better team.
Yeah, for sure. No, um, I agree about New Hook. It's a possibility with his speed, energy. He could be, and I think that's part of the hope is that maybe, hey, he can become a penalty killer. Got to keep working on his game, and I'm sure they've been working with him diligently on that front. Where, yeah, he comes in and he takes a penalty killing role. It's entirely possible. I think Gallagher in the past has played
Yeah.
very effectively on the penalty kill, and I think he'll step into one of those spots. He didn't really play a lot in the PK the
No.
last 2 years,
No.
and I think Gallagher will be one of the guys that that
Yeah.
that steps up and 4 or 5 years, like when the Tatar um, uh, line there with him
Tatar
and
Dano and
Dano back
yeah.
in those days, like they were a shutdown line, right?
Yeah.
And quite effective at it. And I think Gallagher is going to be asked to, keep uh, to play as much on the PK as he did back then. And I thought he was pretty solid on the PK
Yeah.
in those years. So
And and because he's avoided injuries in the last two
right,
years, maybe he could take on that role. I think they were a little bit worrisome about not putting too much on him, but he's been
right.
healthier last little bit, so maybe he could take it on. He could go back to take on that role. That's a good point about Gallagher for sure.
And I also think that if he's, if they're playing like a fourth line role, as everyone, then his ice time won't be maybe quite as much even strength as it has in the past. So he'll be able to, right? He'll make up for that
Right.
by playing on the PK and still get the
Yep.
13 to 15 minutes a game. So he won't be that tired because he's playing a fourth line role some
Hmm.
nights at least. And yeah, I think Gallagher steps in and replaces Armia, as a penalty killer. And I would think that it's probably it's going to be by committee with the other guys. Like maybe Bolduc can play some PK, maybe
Yeah.
Slav, uh, Veleno. I don't know. If he gets in there, they might want to, especially when they're in their defensive zone and there's a big face-off, right? If he's
Right.
on his side, he might be out there to take the draw, and maybe they hope that he can replace Dvorak a little bit. in that regard as well. Um, you know, yeah, those guys are all possibilities, I think, for helping to pick up the slack from losing Armia and Dvorak for that.
Yeah. Really fun discussion with you once again. You brought up so many great points about the Habs, so many good observations. I invite people to go on our YouTube page, watch the videos that Grant is always puts together. They're really, really good. You get some great information. I invite you to, if you're on social media, on X, Grant McCagg is on X. You could go on Blue Sky. Grant is also on. Myself, Rick Springhetti on the Rick1042. Reach out. Let us know what you think. We'll have some good hockey talk. Grant, once again, thanks for a great episode, and we'll see each other next week.